Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the Dave Show. We are again talking about some gaming news. The woke mind virus is slowly dying, but they're not giving up the ghost easily. So let's take a look and see what's going on. 10,000 subscribers. Let's do it.
Every day I wake up on this god-forsaken planet and I am routinely reminded how self-loathing and spiteful the press, who pushes the media, are when it comes to literally anything that gets shared in this world. So, I want to talk about why the gaming media press at this point just needs to be dismantled completely because they simply do not speak for us.
Send in Doge. They'll take care of it.
This goes beyond video games, but we'll talk about some other stuff. So there was a clip shared by a friend of the channel, Cabrutus Rambo. You may remember him as the guy who got attacked by Sweet Baby Inc. when he made a Steam plugin page to sort out all the games that Sweet Baby Inc. was attached to.
Oh.
And then it all ended up sparking into what we now know as GamerGate 2. So, in a lot of ways, the entire dismantling of woke video games was sparked by the catalyst that Cabrutus ignited himself unknowingly. And the gaming industry is still reeling from this very fact. Well, recently there was an award show. I think it was the DICE Awards. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. It's like every other game award show. It's basically a game developer influencer only celebration where a bunch of people who hate gamers all come together to huff each other's farts and shake hands with people they would throw under the bus at a moment's notice to out-virtue the guy standing next to them. I was told that this year's DICE Awards was especially insufferable by people that I know in the industry. These people really don't like how gamers have voices now, but too bad, so sad, it's only gonna get more vocal as time goes on. Anyway, when it comes to not being able to read your audience and knowing what they want, these award shows love putting their jesters on stage. And when it comes to someone who knows how to dance and jump best when he's told, there is no one better than none other than Greg Miller. The once actually good games journalist back when he was at IGN when he had Colin Moriarty near him to keep him humble. Greg now runs the Dwindling Kinda Funny, a group of industry shills who have long lost their connection to the ever-growing audience of pop culture.
Stop! He's already dead!
Greg is also the same guy who threw Colin under the bus and left him for the wolves when Colin made a joke on International Women's Day. And it was in that moment that me and many others saw Greg Miller and Kinda Funny for what they were really becoming. They were, for lack of trying, becoming the very industry shills they claimed they would not become when they left IGN. And fearing his loss to free video games and hotels and being flown out like an Instagram model who's about to do horrendous things for some prince in Dubai for money, Greg instead severed his relationship with Colin and left him to die so that he would not lose access to the media that he felt legitimized him, and this is important. Ever since then, I lost all respect for Kinda Funny and Greg Miller, and I will never not take the opportunity to point and laugh at them whenever I can. Especially when they employ people like Paris, you know, the guy in my last video that I talked about who didn't know which franchise Avowed was attached to when he was speaking to the developers of that game. The bar is so low for game.
Yeah, it doesn't take too much effort to check that out before you go into an interview with those guys. I mean, give me a break.
In journalism, that it's in the grave and it's rotting already. And as you'll see, the gaming media press just, frankly, needs to be destroyed at this point, because they do not speak for me, or you, or anyone except their little cabal that wants to preside over everything. They really think that they're better than you, and this now brings me to this clip. So here's Greg and some other woman on stage talking at an award show, and here, watch this.
Favorite games, Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred is nominated for Online Game of the Year. Get your hands together. Thank you, Rod. Of course, that is a game that takes real skill.
It does. Yeah, and I'm not trying to flatter everyone here, but if I know one thing about this audience, is that none of you had to pay someone to play Diablo for you.
It's hard to level up your own characters when you're dismantling democracy.
What did you say? What the f did you just say?
I feel like we're in good company here, but just in case for the people online, if you get mad at that joke, it's Greg Miller. G-R-E-G.
M-I-L-L-E-R. Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Wow. Wow.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Ah, yes, the typical playbook example of what to do when your entire ideology got voted out of every major institution due to how ass backwards it is, and when everyone realized that your side was so corrupted that they resoundingly rejected you in every single way, and all the shilling that you did for all the video games that failed like Concord or Dustborn died, despite you and your kinda funny slop fiends pushing for them to be bought by people that you genuinely hate. In your infinite wisdom, Greggy boy, you thought the best course of action was to not find common ground to hopefully, maybe revitalize your dying kinda funny platform, but to instead double down and attack people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. When people tell you what they think about you, believe them, dear viewer. These people genuinely, they do not like you. They think they're better than you, and in their heads, you should all have barcodes on your necks, on your knees all the time, with your wallets open so that they can grow fat from your participation. The gaming media press is, as my entire channel stands as hundreds of examples present already, a goddamn cesspool of morons that are only consistent when it comes to how out of touch they are with connecting with the very viewer base they're tasked to tap into. No other industry of journalists outside of maybe just basic politics, which at this point has blended into so many other conversations and institutions, is able to make propaganda slop for nobody that clearly pushes this information equal to a level like video game journalism does. These people ignore every basic argument or example that gets thrown their way because they know how fragile and easy their tenants stand upon. For a recent example, here's a tweet that perfectly encapsulates the average memory of a wokey woke gaming weirdo. Here's what they said about trans representation in Cyberpunk 2077. Is there really girl bulge adverts in Cyberpunk? I'm amazed I've never seen anti-woke chuds complaining about this game for daring to suggest that trans people exist. This then led to Christina Tasty, who said in response, the complaining and moaning came from inside the house. The anti-woke chuds were on your side. Christina would then post various articles where Access Media journalists dogpiled and blasted CD Projekt Red for their apparent transphobia. Like this one from Daily Dot, Cyberpunk is coming. Remember to listen to trans people about its problems. Or this one which reads, the road to Cyberpunk 2077 was a transphobic mess, and this other one is just...
What does it even have to... Who cares? It has nothing to do with... It should have nothing to do with gaming. Give me a break. This is so retarded.
Full of disinformation. Oh, just look at how this one reads. Cyberpunk 2077, one of 2020's hottest games, boycotted over transphobic stereotypes.
Right.
Cross this one off your Christmas list. Boycotted, really? How many copies did Cyberpunk sell in its opening few weeks? Let me check that real quick. Holy crap, dude. 13 million copies in its first 2 weeks of sales despite the refunds.
Wow, good thing it was boycotted. It would have been a lot higher. Huh? Give me a break. These people are so stupid. Anyways.
Hey, Derek Clifton, who wrote this article. What are you talking about boycotts? Because who boycotted this game over transphobia? Because it looks like
Nobody.
Cyberpunk sold more than the entire Dark Souls franchise combined, pretty much, in 2 weeks of retail. But it's okay, guys, because Derek is on the right side of history, just like Greg Miller, after all. And these people's opinions are gospel that we, the dirty, dirty, stinky gaming plebs that we are, must shut our mouths, sew them shut if possible, and of course, get on our knees and praise these gaming journalists. Here's some of that S-tier writing from Derek Clifton here, who, trust me bro, people are boycotting Cyberpunk over trans stuff, which reads, although that option ultimately doesn't dictate any given character's gender identity, the website claims that Cyberpunk 2077 determines an individual's gender not by their genitals, but rather by voice. Only deeply voiced characters can be identified as male, while higher-pitched characters are identified as female, the site notes, which purports the harmful idea that people's genders can be identified by certain traits.
What the f are you talking about, man?
The horror. Perish the thought, Derek Clifton. Gender? Dictated by certain traits? Say it ain't so, Derek Clifton. Oh my god, how could we? How dare we, the human race, completely disregard thousands of years of biology and verifiable proof that there's only 2 genders? When the entire planet has operated like that since time immemorial, but now, because in the last 10 years only, a bunch of blue-haired dyed freaks suddenly decided that there's actually infinity genders, even though they never existed before, but just ignore that, please. Well, of course, everything we thought now was nothing but blasphemy, right? 2 genders. What are you, a conservative, a Republican? You voted for Donald Trump, didn't you?
I'm gonna come.
Unbelievable. How dare you live in reality unlike these weirdos? But it gets worse because Derek continues his stupidity. But that's not where the game's controversial choices end. In Night City, some femme-presenting characters appear with transparent penises that are enlarged beyond conventional proportions, leading to criticism that the game fetishizes and objectifies trans bodies. The situation is aggravated by there being no apparent LGBTQ+ visibility elsewhere in Cyberpunk 2077, even despite a recent push for greater trans and non-binary representation in mainstream gaming. Yeah, how is that going 5 years removed? Not very well, let me tell you.
The fact that you are the first black woman to be a dwarf in Tolkien, the first woman to be a dwarf in Tolkien.
Wait, but they gave the trans characters huge schlongs too. It's funny how Derek got mad saying that they were over-exaggerated and a little telling on yourself, but it's fine anyway. What is CD Projekt Red doing though, right? A bunch of transphobes, aren't they? I can't believe this. Again, circling back to that user who said, why weren't the anti-woke chuds mad about the trans people in Cyberpunk? Because nobody was upset about it, you dummy. The people who were upset about the trans people were the very gaming press you claim is in the right and leans to the left all of the time. Why are these people like this? You're all so stupid. This one user responded to all of this, and I think it sums it up perfectly. This was barely 5 years ago, and it's already been memory hold. Exactly this, and it's the age-old faithful thing these gaming journalist types always try to do. They truly believe that you're so stupid and lack basic memory functions that you'll just forget things a minute after reading them, but wokey poop smeared game journalists. While I am nowhere near a genius, and frankly I am borderline retarded myself, even I have the mental capacity to remember things you guys probably want us all to forget. Remember when GameSpot journalists stood in a circle like a bunch of concerned parents discussing how Herc's dad in Far Cry 5 was problematic because he was calling people like this journalist Obama-loving libtards? No? Here's that clip to jog your memory.
Get over here. Hey, you're that sumbitch Dutch what's going on about.
I was watching some footage with you guys with the guy running for Senate who's a quest giver.
Who's also Herc's dad.
Herc's dad?
The dude that said Obama-loving libtard.
If them Obama-loving libtards find out I can't look after my own property,
oh, no.
I can kiss this Senate run goodbye.
How horrible.
Just watching that guy, I don't understand what tone they're going for with him, because I'm like, okay, he's not a villain, he's not like, but he's a quest giver, so is he just kind of meant to be an asshole? Am I supposed to like him? What are they trying to say with the characters in this game? I don't really know.
But it gets somehow worse, because remember when one of those journalists here, who is also a black guy, was so desperately trying to grasp for straws, that he then claims because he made his character black in Far Cry 5, which was his choice by the way, you don't have to do that, but anyways, that Herc's dad, who's clearly a parody, made him now feel deeply uncomfortable as if he was in like a horror game. Because here's that clip too.
It seems like they are trying to sort of have it both ways, because even though the game is set in America and it's going to be viewed through that lens of the current political climate as we're in right now, they're also trying to say that it's its own standalone thing. It's not related to current politics, which again is weird because you have scenes like scenes with Herc's dad who's talking about Obama-loving libtards.
You a registered voter? Doesn't matter.
The game also has a character creator, and I decided to make my character black. So going onto his property and actually hearing him talk about like this sort of deeply conservative and like sort of gun-toting attitudes, that made me really uncomfortable. So, but I think that's also the point where you make these characters like they're you. I mean, they're supposed to represent you and your choices, but you're also coming into conflict with these sort of fringe ideologies, and it makes things awkward. But at the same time,
I'd be into that if like that was intentional and like they're leaning into that, but I just can't tell if that's on purpose or if that's just some weird...
It gets weird most of the time.
Okay.
It's just a freaking game, people. Give me a break. It's not real. You don't have to feel scared.
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
And you ask me, you idiots do sound like a bunch of Obama-loving libtards if we're being honest with each other right now. Because y'all unironically stood there crying about an NPC in a video game threatening you despite the fact that he cannot in fact do anything to you in the game or in real life, obviously. Yes. And by the way, this clip is like almost 10 years old by this point. Yet if I were to post this today, the attitude and sentiment between these GameSpot weirdos and someone like Greg Miller on stage saying to F you to, Donald Trump is basically the same exact thing despite the time difference. You ask me, which you aren't because I'm the only one talking here, but anyway, is that the gaming media press has been full of stupidity for a very, very long time these days. But I guess I shouldn't be too surprised since GameSpot also unironically had one of their game's journalists say this during their Miles Morales review.
The way he leaps off of rooftops and flips backwards to face the camera before falling into a headfirst dive is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen. It gives me goosebumps every time he does it.
For a group that claims they don't really see skin color, they sure as hell love bringing it up pretty much all the time whenever they can. But maybe they would like my...
That doesn't even... That doesn't even make any sense. Just because he turns around and looks at the camera? That swagger of a black teenager? That makes no sense. That's just him being cool. Period. It doesn't matter what skin color he is. Oh, these people are so ridiculous.
My channel's content better if I too had the exaggerated swagger of a black teen. The problem is that the industry is overrun with these types that clearly do not know how to connect with the players today. I'm not saying that we need a bunch of younger people making content to connect. No, that's not the point. The issue here is that the disconnect between the viewer and the people who are being tasked with giving the coverage and access has never been worse. If I see that Kinda Funny has some sort of exclusive access to some game, I am not going to watch it. I'd rather just wait till a trailer comes out on the official PlayStation channel or I just watch it on Twitter than give them any viewership. Because at this point, it has become paramount that you need to support the things that you want to see more of. And frankly, the amount of Kinda Funny like games journalists offshoot things that have been founded and failed in the past decade is way too damn high. For an example, let's look at Easy Allies, which consisted of games journalists who used to work at game trailers till they got bought out. They, like Kinda Funny, tried to become their own thing, and for a bit they had the highest Patreon out of all of these startups. But then they eventually had on Dustin Furman, who is a part of Last Stand Media, the same Kinda Funny like adjacent, that Colin Moriarty, who founded Kinda Funny, started when he left Kinda Funny. I gotta stop saying Kinda Funny in this video, it's happening way too many times. But anyway, after Dustin was on there, Easy Allies fans got really butthurt and said that they were platforming hateful conservative ideologies by having Dustin on simply because he was friends with Colin. Oh no, the horror. Then Easy Allies apologized and vowed to never have people like Dustin on simply because he was aligned with someone who was deemed conservative. Then following this, Bradley Ellis would leave Easy Allies, and lo and behold, he would actually join Last Stand Media, where he is to this day. And then in late 2023, Easy Allies even admitted that they missed their profit margins and could no longer be sustainable anymore. Now everyone who works on Easy Allies is pretty much being paid part-time salaries because their Patreon and viewership is rightfully in the dumps. They're pretty much almost exactly like Kinda Funny when it comes to viewership numbers and engagement. And then if you go to their actual Kinda Funny Games channel, they've just straight up made the entire channel now a paid subscription model where you can't even engage or see the viewership numbers or watch anything really on that channel unless you pay them. And no, I'm not kidding. By the way, it's $15 a month, and I assume that's American to watch this slop. These game journalists, even when they aren't a part of these websites like IGN, GameSpot, Game Trailers, or whatever else, they always just revert to the same problems that doom their style of content in the first place. Let's not make it readily available because this is all like asking a fish to learn how to fly. This is what the average games journalist is like. They're just doing what they know, which is to be tired industry shills that never say anything problematic, and instead just yes man everything to a dwindling viewer base until they eventually have to wall off and put subscription models to keep themselves afloat. Because by looking at these numbers, I can confidently tell you there's absolutely no way that Kinda Funny or Easy Allies is making enough to survive based solely on ad revenue with these numbers. I don't even think if Kinda Funny was just Greg and he hoarded all the ad revenue from Kinda Funny and the Highlights channel, that would even be enough to pay for his rent alone in San Francisco. And no, I'm not kidding. These numbers are abysmal. The only one out of all these gaming journalists from this website that turned their own channel shtick that still somewhat gets views is Second Wind. But rightfully, they are also the newest of the bunch too. But if you look at their content even now, most of it is still not doing very well either. And the only videos that seem to consistently do well are, of course, the Yahtzee Croshaw content. Which, if you don't know, that used to be called Zero Punctuation, but it's now called Fully Ramblomatic. But if you were to remove Yahtzee's content from Second Wind, yeah, the entire channel would be falling apart from the seams. And they were exposed by one of their own previous co-workers named Frost, who said on his channel how the people at Second Wind are incompetent and they spend way too much money, and they are also greedy but somehow lazy too. And these are the alternatives that we should be watching besides the major publications like IGN. That's it. This is what gaming journalism has to offer the viewer in the year 2025 as quality content? This is slop. Well, Yahtzee's content is fine in my opinion, but most of this is just utter and complete slop. But generally speaking, it's no wonder why independent voices have become the go-to source for journalism and content in general these days over these media types. Because you know that these people are never going to badmouth or criticize the game industry in a way that is actually legit. Because they, like Greg Miller at the beginning of this video, will jump and dance no matter how high to ensure that they don't lose their access, which they believe makes them journalists. But what they have forgotten is that it is not your access, but the trust and following that you garner from your opinions that are based on your coverage of these topics that makes you a real journalist. If nobody is listening to you or watching your content, then it doesn't matter how much free swag you're getting. If someone in their room with a shoestring budget is outperforming you while naked on their couch, why do you think people watch stuff like Asmongold over Kinda Funny? At least Asmongold is going to just say what he thinks, while Greg is tied down by thousands of potential brand deals and free codes that are restricting him from saying anything outside of, I don't think there is anything wrong with video games, and I champion all the diversity and blah 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 talking points. This is why the woke gaming media as a whole just needs to be eradicated. Nuke it from orbit, and then dismantle it and throw it in the trash, because these are for the most part tired relics, and they don't speak for the players anymore. It's like what I said about 2 months back in one of my videos if my dementia is treating me properly. I started YouTube because these types, they don't speak for me anymore. I can't reasonably rely on them to actually talk about the things that matter because they are too afraid to ever step out of line. If you ask me, the best kind of journalism is when the journalists are not afraid to step out of the line. And I have lost plenty of brand deals and free codes for my opinions, but you want to know what? I wouldn't change any of it. I don't care if some company doesn't want to send me a free game code. If I want to cover a game, I'll just buy it myself. And then that way, nobody can tell me what to think or what I can or cannot show in my coverage. Like, Did you know, with Avowed, most reviewers weren't actually allowed to show later parts of the game in their reviews, which, coincidentally, were the very same areas these reviews stated, like Maddie Plays, Skill Up, or Luke Stevens and more, that had the majority of the issues they had with the game, both in story and in performance, as these later areas were riddled with bugs and glitches. How convenient that they aren't allowed to show you the problems, but the only reason why they can't is because when you get sent a free code, it usually comes tied with a rule list of what you can and cannot do with that code. And if you want the code, you have to agree to their demands, so it creates this unfortunate situation where these reviewers can't show you the problems because of the yellow tape, so to speak, being laced around them by these companies that give the access in the first place. And look, I don't blame Maddie or Skill Up for this, by the way. This is out of their control. But it shows how backwards these sorts of partnerships are to begin with. It's like me giving you a free meal to give my restaurant a good rating. But you also can mention that the way that I store the food in the basement of the restaurant is horrendous and goes against the city's inspection clauses. Look, we need more honesty in the gaming media press, and frankly, that cannot exist with the current model of how we do things in the games industry. There is far too much favoritism, too much yes-manning and they-theming, entire made-up categories at events like the Game Awards that exist to solely give pandering devs awards like Games for Impact. What the hell does that even mean? It's one big circle jerk session and you're outside in the rain being barred entry. But frankly, if this is what you need to do to gain this access, I'm not willing to pay the price if I'm being honest. I can only imagine the sinking feeling of going against your morals every single time must feel like, just so that some company will send you a plastic product to shill for their upcoming game where gender doesn't exist and all the white people are the devil. At what point do we realize that all of this is just going to end up destroying the goodwill that this industry should be built upon, instead of building it on the future of the corpses of dead franchises that are conveniently shuffled to the side by yes men like Greg Miller, who will smile and say that everything is fine, while he knows that deep down in his heart that his ideology, the side that he championed and parroted their talking points for years, has been resoundingly rejected by not just his audience, but the entire country that he calls home. If there ever was a white man for Kamala Harris, dude, it is Greg Miller. The living embodiment of white male guilt that is paraded on stage in front of out-of-touch game devs and executives to validate their ever-dying ideological stances that nobody who lives in the real world would agree with them on. And once you take that access away and you view their opinions for what they are, men can be women. Women are actually better than men, but also gender is meaningless. We also need more main characters who are only black and black only, especially female black characters. Like, that is the best, of course. But also, can you make sure that the villains are always white men? Because that makes us feel better. And you place this in front of people who have nothing to gain from agreeing with you, and then you just see how your opinions are treated. It's frankly glorious to witness, because immediately once their tactics of holding this access over your head means nothing, suddenly their opinions and their beliefs are just seen for what they are, which is that they are as hollow and as meaningless as the words that are coming out of Greg Miller's mouth. The guy who threw his friend to the wolves to appease the very people he stands in front of, saying whatever he can to ensure that they keep giving their games to him for free so that he never has to pay for anything. The gaming industry needs a change, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. And if it means burning it down in the hopes that this industry can heal from these stifled influencers who refuse to ever speak out as things get worse, then I'm all for it. But what do you think? Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you have the exaggerated swagger of a black teen, that is. And thanks to my patrons and members, and I'll see you in the next one.
That is funny. Exaggerated swagger of a black teenager. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Boy, I tell you, I think he's right. I think it needs to be just the journalistic integrity is gone from gaming journalism. So yeah, I say tear it down and build it right back up to what it should be. All right. Well, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please subscribe, like, share, slap that bell around so you know whenever I put up another video. And yeah, until the next episode, stay safe. Know that you are loved and appreciated. And until the next episode, I'm saying that a lot, episode. Have a great day.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.